Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to completely demystify the legal frameworks that govern the businesses all around us. Understanding exactly how entities are legally structured is the absolute foundation of finance and investing. I mean, it dictates everything from who calls the shots to who takes the fall when things go sideways. Okay, let's dive into this.
So, how do the world's largest companies actually shield their owners from catastrophic financial ruin? It's a fascinating question, and it gets right to the heart of a core trade-off every single business owner eventually faces on their growth journey: control versus liability. When you start out, you want total control, right? But as you grow, the risks just multiply. How do you raise billions of dollars without putting your own personal savings, your house, and your entire livelihood on the line? Well, the secret lies entirely in how the business is legally formed.
Here's a quick roadmap for our explainer today. 1. Forms of business organizations. 2. Features of corporate issuers. 3. The double taxation dilemma. And 4. Public versus private issuers.
Section 1. Forms of business organizations.
I want you to think about these structures not just as, dry legal definitions, but as a really dynamic story of growth and risk management. Because every massive corporation had to start somewhere. The simplest form out there is the sole proprietorship. It's a direct two-way street. You have full operational control, and hey, you get to keep all the profits. But it comes with unlimited liability. If you get sued, your personal assets are fully exposed. Plus, your ability to grow is constrained entirely by whatever's sitting in your own bank account.
And that brings us to what I call the growth bottleneck. Imagine you want to expand and open 10 new locations. You absolutely need capital, but the thought of carrying all that debt personally, goodbye to a good night's sleep. This exact combination, the desperate need for capital colliding with the terrifying fear of personal ruin, literally forces the business to evolve so it can share the risk. The natural next step is the general partnership. Now we've got multiple partners, pooling their resources and their expertise, which allows the business to scale much faster. So, the crucial point is, all of these partners still share unlimited personal liability. Sure, the risk is distributed, but it's still entirely personal if things go belly up.
Let's move to and see how this builds with the limited partnership. This setup brilliantly addresses that glaring liability issue for some of the investors. Notice the separation here. You have a general partner who actually runs the day-to-day operations and carries that unlimited liability. But then you have limited partners who simply provide capital. Their liability is strictly capped at whatever amount they invested, so if the business completely collapses, their personal homes remain totally safe.
Section 2. Features of corporate issuers. And this brilliantly illustrates the climax of business evolution: the corporate issuer. It's the ultimate capital-raising machine. We've officially moved from terrifying personal liability and restricted funds into a world of limited liability and truly unbounded access to capital. A corporation can raise money from millions of people worldwide. But how exactly do they do that? Well, by completely changing the legal nature of the business itself. The real magic of the corporate form lies in its legal identity. A corporation is actually considered a legally separate entity, entirely distinct from its owners. You can almost think of a corporation as an artificial, distinct human being. It can enter into its own contracts, it hires employees, it can sue people, it can be sued, and yep, it pays its own taxes. Because the corporation is doing all of this in its own name, it fundamentally shields its ultimate owners, the shareholders, from the day-to-day operations and the messy legal liabilities.
Because the corporation is its own standalone entity, it allows for a vital concept: owner-manager separation. In a corporation, the shareholders who own the business generally don't actually run it. Instead, they vote to elect a board of directors. Then the board turns around and appoints professional executive management, your CEO, your CFO, to run the daily operations. This separation is exactly what allows a corporation to raise money from millions of passive investors. Those investors want the financial returns for sure, but they absolutely do not want the headache of managing a company's daily operations.
Section 3. The double taxation dilemma.
But all right, here is the plot twist. These massive corporate superpowers of limited liability and endless capital, they come at a pretty steep cost. Sole proprietorships and partnerships enjoy what's called pass-through taxation, meaning the profits pass straight through to the owners and are taxed just once. Corporations, however, face double taxation. The corporation pays taxes on its profits first, and then, when the leftover cash is distributed as dividends, the owners are taxed again on a personal level. Let's put a real-world number on this to show you the sheer size of the burden. Consider the French retail giant Auchan Holding. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is exactly how that math shakes out. In a recent year, on 838 million euros in pre-tax income, they paid a 31.5% corporate tax. Then, if they distributed the rest to investors in France, those investors paid a 30% personal dividend tax. Combined, a staggering 52.1% of the original profit went straight to taxes. And that right there is the price you pay for the corporate shield.
Section 4. Public versus private issuers.
Before we dissect the absolute highest echelon of corporations, let's just do a quick interactive knowledge check. If a company owner expects a significant, massive need for financing to expand globally, which organizational form is the least appropriate? Think about it for a second. Got it? The answer is the sole proprietorship. Why? Because it completely, utterly restricts your financing to just your own personal savings and whatever you as an individual can manage to borrow. It's the exact opposite of what a capital-hungry business needs to survive.
So now, let's dissect remaining private versus taking the leap and going public. Public companies list their shares on an exchange, giving them incredible liquidity through a freely available free float. But that liquidity comes heavily regulated. You're hit with incredibly costly public disclosures. Private companies get to dodge those regulatory headaches, letting them stay focused on long-term strategy, but the trade-off is they completely sacrifice that easy share transferability. But remember, a company's status isn't set in stone forever. A private company can issue shares to the public for the very first time via an initial public offering, or IPO, to raise a massive influx of capital. Or, alternatively, they can use a direct listing, which is just placing their existing shares right on the exchange without raising any net new money. On the flip side, if a public company decides those regulatory costs are just too high, they can retreat back into the private sphere using a leveraged buyout, or LBO. That's where investors use heavily borrowed money to just buy up all the outstanding public shares. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. We've seen how businesses evolve from a single founder doing absolutely everything, all the way up to massive public corporations where millions of shareholders are completely detached from the daily operations run by hired managers. As businesses chase boundless capital, does the ultimate structure of finance completely separate the creators from their creations? It's a fascinating reality of modern capitalism, honestly. Ownership and operation have become two entirely different worlds. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep analyzing, and I'll catch you next time.